The wind always carried secrets in our valley. When I was a child, I used to believe it spoke to me. Soft whispers through the pines, telling stories older than time. My grandmother would smile and say it was just the mountain breathing. But as I grew older, I began to notice that the air changed before every tragedy. The night my father never came home from the forest, the breeze had tasted like iron and smoke. The night our crops froze in midsummer, the air had fallen still as glass. Tonight, the wind felt strange again, restless, almost expectant. I was gathering herbs behind the healer's hut, trying to ignore the way the air prickled against my skin. The scent of pine and rain filled my lungs as the sky deepened from grey to violet. Another storm, I thought. But storms didn't usually make the earth hum beneath your feet. The world felt. Awake, I'd bent to pick a handful of nightbloom petals. Pale white flowers that opened only when the moon rose. The petals trembled in my hands. It might have been the wind. It might have been something else. A low howl echoed through the mountains then. Distant, but heavy enough to make my heart skip. Wolves. They had grown bolder this season, driven closer to the village by hunger. But this sound was different. It wasn't a pack's call. It was a single voice, deep, raw, and full of something that didn't belong to the wild. Grief, maybe. Or longing. I looked toward the forest's edge. The last light of dusk brushed across the tree line, painting the trunks gold. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw movement. A shadow slipping between the pines. Tall, human-like, but too graceful, too deliberate. I blinked, and it was gone. My pulse quickened. Aria, a voice called softly behind me. It was Elder Maren, the healer I worked under. She stepped out from the hut's doorway, her shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. Come inside, child. The night air isn't safe tonight. I tried to smile, though my hands wouldn't stop trembling. It's just wolves again, isn't it? She didn't answer at once. Her eyes drifted toward the mountains. No, it's the moon. I followed her gaze. The moon was rising, slow and enormous, but it wasn't the pale white I'd always known. It was red, deep crimson, like blood swirling in water. The entire sky seemed to hold its breath. The blood moon, Maren whispered. It hasn't come in 100 years. I swallowed hard. What does it mean? She crossed herself with shaking hands. It means the curse stirs again. Her words chilled me more than the wind. Inside the hut, candles flickered nervously, throwing soft gold light against the wooden walls. I tried to focus on grinding herbs, but my mind wandered back to that strange howl, that almost human sound. The room felt smaller with every breath, the shadows thicker. Maren sat across from me, muttering prayers under her breath. Finally, I couldn't bear the silence any longer. Elder, what curse? She looked up sharply, eyes narrowing as if deciding whether to tell me. The one that binds the Alpha King to the mountain, she said finally. Long ago, when the wolves ruled these forests, their king defied the moon goddess herself. He wanted love instead of loyalty. She punished him, turned his devotion into madness. Now he waits beneath her crimson light, bound to his curse, until the one destined to free him survives the night. I frowned. Survives the night? Her voice lowered to a whisper. Every century, the moon chooses one soul, an Omega, the one whose spirit can calm the Alpha's rage. But none have lived until dawn. The words lingered in the air like smoke. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. I glanced toward the window. The sky was completely red now, and something was moving among the trees again. Not shadows this time. Shapes. Several of them. The wolves. Their eyes glowed faintly, not yellow, but silver. I stood frozen. One of them stepped forward, too tall to be a wolf, too wild to be a man. My breath hitched as the shape came into focus. Broad shoulders, a mane of dark hair, and eyes that seemed to pierce straight through the walls. The candles sputtered out. Maren stood abruptly, her voice trembling. "Get behind me, Arya." But before she could move, the front door swung open. The wind rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and forest and something ancient. He stood there, the stranger from the woods, towering and silent, his gaze fixed on me. His eyes were the same silver I'd seen in the wolves. Not human. Not entirely. Maren whispered his name like a prayer. Alpha King Kale. He didn't look at her. His attention never left me. For a long moment, no one spoke. The world outside had gone eerily quiet. Then, in a voice that was both thunder and whisper, he said, "You hear the mountain, don't you?" My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" "The hum in the ground. The pulse in the air. It answers to you." I tried to step back, but something inside me stirred. A pull deep in my chest, soft and painful, like a memory I didn't know I had. Maren clutched my arm. "Don't listen to him." Kale's eyes softened, and his voice grew almost tender. "The moon has chosen. You are the Omega." I shook my head. "No, I'm just a healer." "You're mistaken." He stepped closer. The air between us seemed to spark, not fire, but recognition. I could feel it in my bones, in the rhythm of my heart matching his. The room tilted slightly as if the world itself had shifted to make space for something new. Kale spoke again, his tone low and heavy. "If you endure this night with me, Omega, I will end the curse and set you free." Before I could reply, a sharp sound tore through the air. A howl, so loud and sorrowful it made the candles flare to life again. The wind slammed the door shut behind him. Maren cried out and grabbed a silver charm from the table, pressing it to my hand. "Go," she whispered urgently. "Go before the others come. He cannot touch you until the moon reaches its peak." I stared at the door where Kale had vanished, my heart racing. "Others?" "The cursed ones," she said. "His pack. They can smell the chosen. They'll come for you before dawn." Lightning flashed outside, lighting up the forest in a burst of white. For a split second I saw them, shapes darting through the trees, eyes glowing like stars. And above them, the blood-red moon hung low, almost close enough to touch. The wind howled again, calling my name this time, and deep in my chest, something ancient answered. The forest never slept that night. Even after I ran from the healer's hut, the air pulsed with life, each gust of wind whispering my name through the trees. The moon followed me, red and watchful, as if judging every step I took. My cloak caught on branches. My breath fogged the cold air, but I couldn't stop. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away before the wolves found me. The forest had always been familiar, yet tonight it felt foreign, alive in a way I'd never felt before. The ground thrummed beneath my boots, and when I touched a tree for balance, I swore it shivered under my fingers. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound felt closer than it should be. I tried to tell myself it was fear, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. There was something else stirring inside me, something older, quieter but impossibly strong. It was as if the pulse of the earth had found its way into my chest. I could feel the heartbeat of the forest, the rhythm of the night. Then I heard it again. A howl, not the kind that sent fear down your spine. This one reached into me, like a voice I'd forgotten how to answer. It rose and fell with aching beauty, too human to be animal, too raw to be anything else. And for a moment, I almost answered back. I stopped at the edge of a clearing. The moonlight spilled across the ground, silver against the frost. The world seemed suspended in that glow, soundless except for my own breathing. I could smell pine, rain, and something faintly metallic like the air before lightning. Then, movement. A shadow broke from the tree line. Tall, slow, careful. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet stayed planted. The figure stepped forward, and moonlight caught the angles of his face. It was him. Kale. The Alpha King. He wasn't wearing armor or a crown, only a dark cloak that fluttered around him like smoke. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the crimson light above. I could feel the weight of his presence before he even spoke. "I told you not to run," he said softly. My heart pounded in my chest. "You didn't tell me anything. You just appeared in my home like a shadow." He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "You heard me. You felt it, didn't you?" I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words caught in my throat. Because he was right. I had felt it, the pull, the strange hum in my veins, the same pulse that now matched the rhythm of his breath. "What are you doing to me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He took a slow step closer. "Nothing. The bond has already begun." I backed away, but he didn't follow. His voice was calm, almost regretful. "You shouldn't fight it. The more you resist, the stronger it becomes." "The bond?" I whispered. "You mean this curse?" He looked away, toward the moon. "It's both. A curse. And a promise." I wanted to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. The forest around us seemed to lean in, listening. The air shimmered faintly, carrying his scent pine, cold stone, and something dark I couldn't name. "I don't understand," I said. "You will," he replied. "But not here. They'll find you soon." "Who?" "My pack," he said, his voice lowering. "The ones the moon twisted beyond reason. They can smell what I can fear. Hope, destiny. And they'll come for you before dawn." I swallowed hard. "Then help me, please." He hesitated. For a heartbeat, something fragile flickered in his eyes. Then he nodded once. "Follow me." I didn't think. I just moved. We slipped through the trees. His stride smooth and effortless, mine uneven and hurried. Despite his silence, I could sense the power in him, something controlled, restrained. He moved like a storm, trying not to break. After a while, the forest opened up to a narrow path of stones leading down into the mist. A faint blue glow shimmered in the distance. "What is that?" I asked. "The edge of my territory," he said. "Beyond it, even I am not welcome." "And where are you taking me?" He looked back over his shoulder. "Somewhere safe." I almost laughed. "You expect me to believe you?" He didn't smile, but his eyes softened just enough to disarm me. "No, but I expect you to survive. And that is the only way." Something rustled behind us, a sound too heavy for the wind. Cale turned sharply, his posture shifting. I saw the faint ripple beneath his skin, the way his shoulders tensed as though fighting something within. He motioned for me to stay silent. Through the fog, I saw them, three shapes moving low and fast, their eyes glinting silver in the moonlight. The pack. Cale stepped forward, voice low but commanding. "Go back." The wolves growled, answering in a sound that wasn't quite language but carried meaning, all the same refusal. Cale's expression hardened. "Then face me." The forest seemed to hold its breath. The air shimmered. Then, in one fluid motion, he shifted. Not fully into a beast, but enough for the world to tremble. His eyes burned like molten steel. His shadow stretched, rippling into the mist until the wolves backed away with low snarls before disappearing into the dark. When he turned back to me, he looked almost human again, Almost. They won't stop, he said quietly. But they won't touch you while I'm near. I could barely find my voice. What are you? His gaze met mine, unflinching. A monster who remembers being a man. For a long moment we just stood there, the red moon casting light over us both. I wanted to hate him, to run back to the world I understood. But something in his eyes anchored me. He extended his hand. The path ahead is long. You'll need to trust me. The words struck something deep in my chest. Trust him. I barely knew what he was. And yet, something inside me already did. Against my better judgment, I placed my hand in his. His skin was cold, but the touch sent warmth through my arm. Soft and familiar. Like a memory of sunlight he led me deeper into the forest. The mist grew thicker, but the fear that had clung to me began to fade, replaced by something I couldn't name at one point. I glanced up. The moon seemed closer now, its red glow pulsing gently in rhythm with my heartbeat. Or maybe his dot when we reached a clearing. Cale stopped. The ruins of an ancient stronghold stood before us, stone walls covered in ivy, glowing faintly under the moonlight. This was once my home, he said. Before the curse. The air around the ruins shimmered like heat rising from sand. My heart ached for reasons I didn't understand. It felt like I'd seen this place before in dreams I couldn't remember. Cale's voice softened. Do you feel it? I nodded slowly. It's like the air remembers me. He looked at me then, truly looked, and something in his expression changed. Wonder, fear, recognition. The moon doesn't make mistakes, he said. Before I could ask what he meant, a faint chime echoed through the air like distant bells carried by the wind. The ruins flickered with light, ancient runes glowing on the stones around us and somewhere in the distance, I heard my own name whispered back to me, soft, familiar and impossibly old. The ruins felt alive. Every stone seemed to hum beneath the light of the red moon. Mist coiled around the broken walls like something breathing, and the air carried a faint warmth that shouldn't have existed in the cold. My pulse echoed in my ears, steady and uncertain, as Cale stepped ahead of me through the shattered archway. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The silence between us said more than words could. Inside, time had stopped. Vines climbed along the cracked marble pillars, wrapping around them as if trying to hold them upright. Faded carvings of wolves and moons lined the walls. At the center stood an ancient throne, half crumbled, half whole, facing a wide window that looked out at the mountain peaks. Cale paused there, his posture heavy, his presence even heavier. It wasn't just power that filled the space around him. It was sorrow, old and deep, like the ruins themselves. I found my voice at last. This was your home? He nodded slowly. Once, before the curse. Something in his tone made my chest tighten. I stepped closer. The air between us shifted, pulling me toward him in quiet defiance of reason. I didn't understand why, but every breath I took seemed to draw me nearer. He turned to me, his eyes soft but unreadable. You shouldn't be here. I didn't have a choice, I whispered. His gaze lingered on me for a long moment. Neither did I. He moved to the window, resting a hand on the cracked stone. His voice dropped lower, quieter. I was born in these mountains, long before your kind built villages at their feet. The moon goddess gave me strength to protect my people. But I wanted more. I wanted to be free from her control. He paused, as if the memory burned. When she demanded loyalty, I refused. I broke the bond between our kind and the moon's light. In return, she cursed me, and everyone who followed me. She stripped away what was human and left behind what you saw tonight. His shoulders tensed. The beast. I swallowed. And the Omegas? He looked at me, eyes steady and sad. Every 100 years, she sends one a soul bound to the moon's light. The only one who can end my curse. But none ever live to see dawn. My curse consumes them. For a moment, the weight of his confession filled the space like fog. I should have felt fear. I should have run. But IDN single quotes T. instead. All I felt was the quiet ache of something I couldn't explain, like I'd waited all my life to hear this story. You don't sound like a monster, I said softly, a faint, bitter smile tugged at his mouth. That's because you haven't seen me when the moon commands. He turned away, but I couldn't look anywhere else. Something about his voice, the steadiness beneath the pain, pulled me closer. It wasn't magic. It was connection. Real, unspoken, dangerous. I took a cautious step toward him. Maybe it isn't the curse that kills them. Maybe it's the fear. His gaze flicked to mine again, sharp and uncertain. Fear? I nodded. If everyone believes you're a monster, they'll never see the man fighting beneath it. Maybe that's what she wanted, to make you believe it too. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something fragile, like hope trying to breathe again after centuries of silence. You speak like someone who remembers, he said quietly. Remembers what? He hesitated. The bond. I felt the air tighten around us. My heartbeat quickened, though I didn't know why. I don't understand. He stepped closer then, not enough to frighten me, but close enough that I could feel the quiet energy radiating from him. It wasn't heat or light. It was more like gravity. Every thought I had scattered beneath it. The bond between Alpha and Omega isn't just a legend, he said, his voice low and steady. It's a rhythm that exists between souls. Two halves of the same power, drawn together by the moon. When one resists, the other weakens. When one accepts, the other heals. He paused, studying my face. You felt it, haven't you? The hum in your chest. The pulse in your veins. I hesitated, then nodded slowly. Since the night you found me. He took a small breath, as if that answer carried more weight than I realized. Then it's already begun. I looked down, trying to steady my thoughts. What happens if I don't survive the night? Kale's voice grew softer. Then the curse continues. I remain what I am, and your soul joins the moon's light forever. He said it with such calm finality that it broke something in me. You sound like you've already accepted it. I did, a long time ago, he said. Until tonight. His eyes caught mine again, and the room seemed to fade. The walls, the wind, even the moonlight, it all blurred at the edges until it felt like only his voice existed. There was no magic, no force I could see. Just a connection that felt impossibly real. He looked away, almost as if afraid of his own words. You remind me of someone I lost. Someone who once tried to save me. Who? The first Omega, he said quietly. She believed love could change fate, that fate wasn't kind to her. The emotion in his voice made my throat ache. I wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to somehow offer comfort, but something inside me warned not to. Not yet. The silence stretched between us again. Heavy and fragile. I could hear the faint sound of the wind moving through the ruins, like whispers of voices long gone. After a long moment, Kale spoke again. The moon will test us both before dawn. She always does. How? His eyes lifted to the blood-red sky. By forcing us to face what we fear most. And what do you fear? I asked. His answer was almost a whisper. Myself. Those words stayed with me long after he turned away. He began to walk deeper into the ruins, his footsteps echoing softly against the stone. I followed without thinking. I didn't want him to disappear into the mist again. We reached a staircase spiraling downward, carved into the mountain itself. The air grew cooler, denser, filled with a faint hum like a heartbeat. As we descended, faint light flickered along the wall's runes, glowing faintly in the darkness. "This place," I said, running my fingers along the stone. "It feels familiar." He stopped and glanced back at me. "It should. The moon chose you for a reason." His tone carried both wonder and warning. At the bottom of the stairs, a wide chamber opened, filled with still water reflecting the glow of the moonlight through cracks in the ceiling. It looked ancient, sacred. Cale stood at the water's edge, his reflection rippling faintly. "This is where the curse was sealed," he said. "Where I lost myself to the moon's will." I stared at the water. In its surface, I saw not just him, but two figures side by side, faint and luminous, like memories caught between worlds. One of them looked like me. The image vanished before I could speak. Cale's voice broke the silence. "If you see what she wants you to see, don't look too long. The moon's memories aren't kind." I looked up at him, my heart pounding for reasons I didn't understand. What if I see something I can't forget? His eyes softened, full of quiet sorrow. "Then maybe you were meant to remember." For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us shimmered with something unspoken, half fear, half longing. And in that stillness, as the crimson light touched the water's surface, I felt it again, the pull between us. Familiar, magnetic, ancient. It wasn't just destiny. It was recognition. The night after Cale showed me the chamber, sleep felt impossible. Even when I closed my eyes, the ruins seemed to pulse in the back of my mind, like the walls themselves were breathing. Every sound in the castle, every sigh of wind, every flicker of flame felt too alive. The world wasn't quiet anymore. It was listening. I lay on the bed Cale had arranged for me in one of the restored rooms. The sheets smelled faintly of cedar and rain, and yet I couldn't get warm. My body ached with exhaustion, but my thoughts wouldn't rest. They kept circling back to him, to his story, his eyes, the weight he carried like an echo that never faded. When I finally drifted into sleep, the dream came. I was standing in a forest of silver trees, their leaves shimmering with moonlight. The air was still. In the distance, I saw a figure kneeling by a stream. Her hair flowed like liquid light, and she wore a crown made of thorns and stars. When she turned, her face was mine. "Remember," she whispered, "before he was cursed, you loved him." I woke with a start, my heart hammering. The room was cold again, the moonlight cutting sharp across the floor. My breath clouded in the air like frost. I could still hear her voice, faint and trembling, fading into silence. Before I could gather my thoughts, a knock came at the door. It was soft, almost hesitant. When I opened it, Cale stood there, a lantern in hand. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes told me he already knew. "You saw something," he said quietly. I nodded, unsure how to explain. "A woman. She looked like me. She said I loved you. Before." For a moment he didn't move. Then he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The light from his lantern washed over the room, warm and golden, chasing away the cold. He set it on the table and turned toward me. "The moon shows memories, not dreams. She's reminding you of what's been lost." "Lost?" I whispered. He hesitated, then said softly, "Souls that are bound by her light often meet again, life after life. Each time she gives them a chance to change what fate couldn't." His words sank into me like warmth through ice. "And you think that's what this is?" He looked at me for a long moment. "I don't think. I feel it." There was something in the way he said it, quiet, certain, aching, that made my pulse tremble. He took a step closer. his gaze lowering slightly, as if afraid of what he might find in mine. When you speak, it feels like an echo I've known for centuries. Every word pulls at something inside me that shouldn't exist anymore. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breath. Cale. He shook his head gently. You don't have to say anything. The moon never gives us answers, only reminders. For a while, neither of us spoke. The firelight flickered across his face, and I could almost imagine what he must have looked like before the curse. Loneliness carved its mark into his soul. Then suddenly, the lantern flickered. Once, twice. Then it went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Cale turned sharply toward the window. Outside, the red moon glowed brighter than before, spilling light through the cracks in the curtains. I could hear the faint sound of distant howling, low, mournful, and unending. The pack, he murmured. They've sensed you. Me? He nodded slowly. They can feel what I feel. When your presence stirs the bond, it ripples through them. Some will be drawn to protect you. Others won't understand what you are. The words chilled me more than the wind. What am I? He didn't answer. His expression was heavy with something between awe and fear. You'll find out soon enough. The room grew colder again. The howling grew closer. Cale stepped toward the window and pulled the curtain aside. Outside, in the clearing below the castle, shadows moved, shapes darting between the trees, quick and silent. Their eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. Stay here, he said. But something in me rebelled against the command. No. He turned to face me. The look in his eyes stopped me mid-breath. If they see you, they'll know what you are before you do. And once they know, there's no turning back. His voice was steady, but I could feel the undercurrent of worry. Not fear for himself, fear for me. I stayed still as he left the room. The door closed softly behind him, and the silence that followed felt heavier than before. For a while, I just stood there, staring at the faint red glow leaking through the window. Then, without meaning to, I whispered into the air. Before he was cursed, you loved him. As soon as the words left my lips, something inside me shifted. The mark on my wrist, the faint crescent I had been born with, the one my mother used to call my moon's kiss, began to glow softly. A warm light pulsed from it, slow and rhythmic, matching the beat of my heart. I stared at it, frozen. The light spread faintly through my veins, up my arm, a soft shimmer beneath my skin, and with it came a flood of sensations. Sounds, scents, flashes of memory that weren't mine. Laughter in a garden at night, fingers brushing against my cheek, a voice whispering my name in the dark. Cale's voice. The realization hit like a wave. The dreams weren't visions of someone else's life, they were fragments of mine. A life I'd already lived and forgotten. My knees weakened, and I grabbed the edge of the bed to steady myself. The glow on my wrist faded slowly, leaving only the echo of warmth behind. When Cale returned, his expression was tense, his eyes sharp from whatever he'd seen outside. But when he looked at me, the tension changed, softened. He saw the faint shimmer still fading from my skin. It's begun, he said quietly. I nodded, unable to speak. My breath trembled. Cale, I remember something. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. What did you see? I met his eyes, the truth trembling on my tongue. You, not as you are now, but as you were. And I paused, the weight of the moment pressing down on every word. I think I loved you once. For a long time he didn't speak. The fire crackled softly between us. Then, with quiet sorrow, he said, That's what I feared. I frowned, confused. Feared? He looked away, his jaw tightening. Because every time you remember, the moon takes you back before dawn. His voice broke slightly at the last word. I felt the air still around us. The warmth drained from the room, leaving only the sound of the wind against the stone. What do you mean takes me back? I whispered. He met my gaze again, his expression raw and honest. Each time you return to me, the bond awakens too soon. And before the curse can break, she reclaims you. I lose you. Every time. My heart stilled. Every time. The words sank deep, heavy as truth itself. I didn't know what destiny meant. I didn't know what it was to live the same story again and again. But as the red moonlight touched his face, I realized one thing with perfect clarity. This wasn't the first night we had met. It was the night we always met. And somewhere, beyond the curse and the centuries, the moon was waiting to see what we would choose this time. The castle felt different after that night. Quieter. Not empty, but watching. The air itself seemed to hum with something unseen, as though the walls were keeping secrets only Kale and I could hear. Every candle flicker, every creak of the stone, felt charged with meaning. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The dream, the mark, the truth, every thought tangled together like threads I didn't yet know how to weave. When dawn finally brushed against the mountains, I found myself standing at the balcony, watching the mist drift across the valley. Kale appeared not long after. He moved silently, like the shadows knew him, and when he spoke, his voice carried that same low calm that made my heart falter. "You saw too much too soon," he said quietly. "The moon doesn't like that." I turned to face him. "Then why show me at all?" He looked past me toward the light breaking over the hills. "Because even she can't silence what was once written in blood and soul." There was sadness in his words, but also something gentler, something that softened the cold edge he usually carried. I stepped closer. "You said I return every lifetime, that I forget. Then why keep looking for me if you always lose me?" He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Because even cursed hearts remember hope." His honesty struck me harder than I expected. I searched his face, trying to read the shadows behind his expression, but he turned away first. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full. Full of everything we wanted to say, but didn't know how. Finally, he broke it. "Come with me," he said. We walked through the long corridors, down spiral stairs that wound deep beneath the castle. The air grew cooler, touched by the scent of moss and stone. Lanterns glowed softly along the walls, their flames steady and golden. He led me into a room I hadn't seen before, a garden hidden underground. Vines hung from the ceiling, glowing faintly like strands of moonlight. A small pool shimmered at the center, its surface calm and glassy. "This was her gift to me," Kale said quietly. "The moon's reflection. It never fades, no matter how deep the night." I knelt beside the water, mesmerized by how still it was. When I looked into it, I didn't see my face. I saw two silhouettes beneath a silver sky. A woman reaching for a man she couldn't touch. And then it faded. "Is that you, S?" I asked softly. Kale's voice was low. "A memory, or a warning." When I turned to him, I noticed something new in his eyes. Not the hardness I had seen before, but the trace of fear. Not for himself, but for me. "Kale," I said, "what happens if I remember everything?" He hesitated, then said quietly, "Then you'll see what you were meant to forget. And the curse will start to unravel. That's a good thing, isn't it?" He looked down, his hand brushing against the pool's surface. "Every time you remember, the moon tests us. She decides if the bond deserves to survive." He stood beside me then, close enough that I could feel the faint warmth radiating from him. The light from the pool danced across his face, softening the lines of worry that never seemed to leave him. "Do you ever wonder why you keep coming back?" he asked. I thought for a moment. Maybe because I never finished what I started. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. Or because neither of us did. Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. Then, without warning, the water stirred. The reflection shifted, rippling, distorting, until the two figures became one. Cale stepped back, startled. "No," he whispered. "It's too soon." The vines above us flickered with pale light. A soft wind moved through the chamber, carrying the scent of rain and night. My mark burned faintly again, pulsing like a heartbeat. "What's happening?" I asked. He reached for my wrist, his hand hovering just above the glowing skin. "The moon is calling. She's reminding us of what we tried to change." I could feel the tremor in his voice. The warmth of his presence grounded me even as everything around us seemed to shimmer and shift. "Cale," I said softly, "what if this time is different?" He looked at me, then really looked, and something in his eyes changed. The fear gave way to something raw, older, and infinitely tender. He reached out, his fingertips brushing the air near my hand, but never quite touching. "If it's different," he said quietly, "then maybe the curse won't take you again." The way he said it, hope threaded with dread, made the air thick between us. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't afraid. That the memories, the strange connection, even the pain of not knowing it, all felt worth it if it led here. But before I could speak, the chamber trembled. The vines flickered again, their light dimming as if the moon herself were listening. Cale stiffened. His eyes darted upward. "She's testing us already." I stepped closer instinctively, my voice barely a whisper. "Then let her see." The tremor subsided slowly, leaving only silence in its wake. Cale looked at me, astonishment softening into something like peace. "You shouldn't say things like that," he murmured. "Why not?" "Because every time you do, it makes me believe this time will end differently." The words landed between us like a confession. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence said enough. For the first time, he let the distance fall away. He stood close enough that I could feel his breath catch when I met his gaze. The light from the pool shimmered across us, and for a heartbeat, it felt like time held still. The curse, the lifetimes, the fear, all of it faded. There was only this two souls caught between fate and choice. Then the pool rippled again. The reflection showed something new, two figures standing beneath the red moon, their hands almost touching, the light between them trembling like fire. Cale drew in a breath. "She's showing us the night it began. The curse?" He nodded. "And the choice we never made." I looked at him, my pulse quickening. "Then we'll make it this time." His eyes softened, but sorrow lingered beneath the hope. "If we do, everything changes." "Maybe that's the point," I whispered. He didn't argue. He only looked at me, and in that moment I felt the bond, ancient, invisible, undeniable, move between us like a heartbeat shared. The vines above us began to glow again, brighter this time, wrapping the chamber in silver light. The pool shimmered once more, showing flashes of memory, faces, moonlight, laughter, and tears, all blending into one endless cycle. And then, as suddenly as it began, the light dimmed. Cale's expression grew unreadable. "She's waiting for us to remember," he said softly. "But she's also watching to see what we'll do once we do." His words hung in the air like a promise or a warning. I looked down at my reflection one last time. The water showed two figures standing together, surrounded by silver light. One of them reached out, and this time, their fingers touched. The reflection didn't fade. It stayed steady, unbroken. I looked at Cale and he whispered, almost to himself, "Maybe. This time, the moon believes in us too." The next morning began in silence. The castle, usually alive with whispers of the wind, stood still. Even the birds that circled the towers seemed to have vanished, as if the world were holding its breath. Cale was nowhere to be seen. I wandered through the hallways, my footsteps echoing softly across the marble floors. The air carried the faint scent of rain and old stone, a smell that felt both comforting and haunting. I followed the sound of a low hum, a vibration in the walls that seemed to lead me somewhere I had never been. It brought me to a heavy door, ancient oak carved with the symbol of the crescent moon, the same mark that rested faintly on my wrist. When I touched it, the door opened on its own. Inside was a vast circular chamber lit by candles floating in midair. At the center stood Cale, his back to me, his cloak brushing the ground as he leaned over a stone pedestal covered in runes. He didn't turn when he said, "You shouldn't be here." His voice sounded different, lower, strained, as if carrying the weight of something unbearable. "I was looking for you," I said softly. He lifted his head. "You always are." There was pain in his words, and when he finally faced me, I saw why. His eyes were darker, threaded with silver veins that pulsed faintly in the candlelight. "What's happening to you?" I whispered. He looked down, his jaw tightening. "The curse was never meant to fade. Every time you return, every time you remember, it feeds on what's left of me." I felt the words hit deep in my chest. "Feeds?" He nodded. "On time, on hope, on everything that might save us." I took a step closer, but he stepped back. "No," he said gently. "Don't, not yet." The air around him shimmered faintly. I could feel it now, the energy that pulsed from him, not warmth, but a kind of ancient sorrow that filled the room. "I thought the curse only bound you," I said. He gave a hollow laugh. "No curse stays where it's cast. The moon doesn't curse one without touching the other." I frowned, unsure. "You mean me?" He met my gaze then, his expression raw. "It was never just my punishment. You chose it too." The words stole my breath. What?" He turned toward the pedestal and pressed his hand against the stone. The runes flared to life, glowing with soft blue light. Images flickered across the wall's shadows of another time. I saw a woman, me, kneeling beside him beneath the same moon. Her hands clasped around his, her eyes full of tears. "You'll be condemned," she whispered. "So will you," he answered. "I don't care," she said. "If this is the only way to keep you from the dark, then let her take me too." The image faded. The candles flickered out one by one. I stood frozen, the truth washing over me in slow, painful waves. "I gave myself to the curse," I whispered, "to save you." Cale's voice broke when he spoke. "You gave your soul to share my fate. And every time you return, the bond awakens stronger, brighter, but never free." I felt dizzy. "Then why do we keep trying?" He looked at me with a grief so deep it almost silenced me. "Because love isn't a lesson the moon lets go easily." The room seemed to close in around us, heavy with the weight of lifetimes. I could feel something stir in me again, the same pull I had felt when my mark glowed. A warmth, deep and soft, that spread from my chest outward. It felt like memory, like the ache of something once lost and remembered. In that moment, I understood. The curse wasn't a wall between us. It was a circle. Every time we broke it, it began again. Cale reached out as if to steady me, but his hand stopped just short of mine. "If you touch me now, it'll bind us completely," he said softly. "Would that end it?" He hesitated. "No, it would end me." I swallowed, tears stinging my eyes. And if I don't? Then you'll forget again. The silence that followed was unbearable. Two choices, both cruel. He stepped closer despite his warning, the air trembling between us. His voice dropped to a whisper. You once told me that love wasn't meant to save us. It was meant to make us remember who we were. I met his eyes. Then I'll remember. Before he could stop me, I reached out. My hand brushed his. Light burst between us, soft at first, then blinding. The room disappeared. The candles, the pedestal, the walls all gone. In their place, I saw fragments of the past unraveling around us. A field bathed in silver light. Two figures standing hand in hand as wolves circled them. A promise whispered beneath a blood moon. You can't fight fate, the moon had said. But you can choose how it ends. When the light faded, we were standing in the same chamber, but everything felt changed. Cale collapsed to his knees, his breath ragged. The silver in his eyes burned brighter, his hands shaking. I knelt beside him, terrified. Cale, he shook his head weakly. It's all right. You've done what I couldn't. You broke the seal. What seal? He looked up, his voice trembling. The one that kept you from remembering. My pulse quickened. So the curse. He cut me off gently. It's still here. But now it knows who you are. I didn't understand until I saw it, the mark on my wrist glowing brighter than ever before. Shifting shape. It no longer looked like a crescent. It looked like two intertwined wolves beneath the moon. Cale saw it too. His eyes widened. No, he whispered. She's rewriting it. Before I could ask what he meant, a cold wind swept through the chamber. The candles reignited on their own, burning white this time. A voice filled the air, not loud, but ancient. You chose again, it said. And again, you chose each other. The wind grew stronger. The runes across the walls blazed to life. Cale tried to stand but faltered. Don't listen, he said, his voice barely audible. She's testing us. The voice continued, calm and distant. If love is your defiance, then let love bear the weight of consequence. A crack formed across the floor, glowing like molten silver. The ground trembled beneath us. Cale looked at me, eyes full of warning and sorrow. She's shifting the curse. I can feel it. How? He reached for my hand, his grip weak but steady. Because this time, she's not taking me. What do you mean? His expression broke, gentle, tragic, certain. She's taking you. The world went silent. The candles blew out. The wind stopped. And in the sudden, endless stillness, I felt the pull, the same invisible thread that had drawn me to him every lifetime tighten until it burned. Then, before I could breathe, the light swallowed everything. The morning came with a silence that didn't feel like peace. It felt like the calm before a storm that had already decided where it would land. I stood by my window, watching fog rise from the ground like a ghost that had forgotten its way home. The sky was pale and tired. I felt the same. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the Alpha King. His voice still echoed in my head, the promise he made, the pain behind it, and the curse that tied us both. The night before, he had told me the truth about the moon's curse, about the bloodline that chained him to endless darkness, and about me, the Omega who could set him free, but only by surviving the night. No one ever had. It wasn't a threat. It was fate whispering in the quiet. Since then, nothing had felt normal. My breath came shallow. The air around me carried his scent even when he wasn't there. A pull, a reminder. My world was bending toward him, even when my mind screamed to stay away. I tried to distract myself with simple things. The kettle boiling, the sound of birds on the roof, the ordinary rhythm of life. But everything felt like a shadow of itself. My thoughts kept drifting back to his eyes, to the sorrow buried behind their strength. I didn't understand why I cared. I should have been afraid. I should have run. But I couldn't. Something in me recognized him, like a song I'd forgotten I used to know. When the knock came at my door, I already knew it was him. I didn't move at first. My hands trembled. My heart began to race, not from fear, but from something deeper, a pull I couldn't explain. I opened the door slowly. He stood there, cloaked in the morning mist. His expression was calm, but his eyes carried storms. "You shouldn't be here," I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be. "I had to see you," he replied. His tone was quiet, but it held weight, like every word had been chosen with care. "You deserve to understand what's coming." The world seemed to fade around us. Only his voice remained. "What do you mean?" I asked. He stepped closer, not enough to touch, but close enough that I felt the air shift between us. "The moon will rise full in 3 nights. When it does, the curse will demand its price again." His eyes locked on mine. "You are bound to me, whether you want it or not." The words sank like stones in my chest. "Bound?" He nodded. "You were chosen by the same magic that cursed me. Every lifetime she returns, the Omega who holds my freedom. But she never survives." I took a step back. "And why tell me this?" "Because you deserve a choice." His voice cracked, just slightly. "You can leave before the full moon. You can forget me. Or you can stay and face what destiny has written for us." My throat tightened. I wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. He turned away, as if already preparing to vanish. "I don't want to hurt you," he said quietly, "but I can't stop what I am." Something inside me broke then, not from fear, but from the weight of his loneliness. I couldn't explain it, but I knew his pain. I had carried my own share of it, and somehow his felt like mine. "Wait," I whispered. He stopped. The fog swirled around him like the world itself held its breath. "If I stay, if I face it, is there a chance you'll be free?" His silence said more than words could. Then he turned, meeting my eyes again. "Freedom has a cost, Omega, and I don't know which of us would pay it." The truth in his tone made my heart ache. I wanted to believe there was a way for both of us to survive, but the curse had written its story long before we met. Still, something inside me refused to surrender. "I'll stay," I said finally. "I don't know why, but I'll stay." He looked at me for a long time, as if he couldn't believe what he'd heard. The faintest light flickered in his eyes. Not joy, but hope's fragile ghost. "You shouldn't," he said softly. "But thank you." When he left, the air didn't feel the same. The world was alive with something unseen, a pulse, a warning, a promise. That night, I couldn't stop hearing his words. Every sound outside felt like a whisper from the forest. Every flicker of the candlelight made shadows dance across the walls. I felt the bond between us growing stronger, not by will, but by something deeper, something ancient. I went outside, drawn by the pull I could no longer fight. The moon was only a sliver, yet it glowed as if watching me. The wind carried his voice, faint but real. "Survive the night with me, Omega, and I'll break the curse." I froze. My heart raced. It wasn't a memory. It was happening. I turned toward the forest, and there he stood among the trees, waiting. His figure shimmered with moonlight, half shadow, half dashed dream. The night seemed to hold its breath again. My mind said no, but my heart had already answered. I stepped forward once. Then again. The pull grew stronger with every beat of my heart. I didn't know what waited for me in the darkness, salvation or destruction, but I knew I couldn't turn away anymore. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet truth whispered, love was never meant to be safe. It was meant to be real. And as I crossed the threshold between the known and the unseen, I felt it. The first tremor of fate awakening. The night had begun. The forest felt alive that night. Every leaf seemed to breathe. Every gust of wind whispered my name. I followed the sound that called to me, unsure if it came from him or from something older, something that had been waiting long before either of us existed. The fog parted as I stepped deeper into the woods. The moonlight shimmered through the branches, painting silver paths on the ground. I could see him ahead, standing near the ruins of what looked like an old stone circle. Time had buried it, but the earth still remembered. He turned as I approached, his cloak brushing against the moss. His eyes caught the light, reflecting something more than human, something endless. I knew you would come, he said softly. I stopped a few steps away. My heart felt heavy and wild at once. You called me, I whispered. Even if you didn't mean to. He smiled faintly, but there was sadness in it. You hear what others can't. That's why I feared this bond. It doesn't only link our souls. It wakes what sleeps beneath them. The words sank deep, but I didn't understand. What do you mean? He turned toward the stones, tracing a hand across one of them. Symbols, ancient and half-faded, began to glow under his touch. This is where the first bond was forged, he said. Between moonlight and blood, between Alpha and Omega. The air hummed as he spoke. The glow spread to the other stones, circling us in pale silver fire. I felt my pulse quicken. What are you showing me? He looked at me, then his expression torn between reverence and regret. The truth, he said. You were never just chosen. You were born of it. I frowned, shaking my head. Born of what? He stepped closer. His voice lowered, almost breaking. Of the same bloodline that cursed me. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The forest seemed to tilt around me. That's not possible, I whispered. I'm not like you. He nodded, slowly. No, not like me. But from me. The words struck like thunder, soft, but shattering. He went on, his tone trembling with the weight of centuries. Long ago, before the curse, I was a king of two worlds, half mortal, half shadow. I loved a healer of the Moon clan. Her name was Alara. She was my omega, my heart. But when the gods saw our bond, they called it forbiddance. They tore her from me and cast her soul into mortal bloodlines. I searched every lifetime for her. And now, he stopped, his eyes filled with pain. Now I've found her again. The world fell silent. It took a long time for me to find my voice. You think that's me? I don't think, he said. I know. 1,000 images flashed through my mind, every dream, every strange feeling, every time I'd sensed something watching me. My entire life had been leading here, to this truth I never asked for. I shook my head, stepping back. No, I'm just me. I have a small life, a quiet one. I'm not part of some ancient story. He followed, his expression gentle, almost pleading. You've felt it, haven't you? The memories that aren't yours. The fear of the moon. The ache when you see me. I couldn't deny it. I had felt all of that and more. Every glance between us carried a weight that didn't belong to strangers. Still, I whispered, why now? Why this life? The curse resets with each moon, he said, until the bond is fulfilled or broken. You were meant to end it, but fate is cruel. Every time she returns, she remembers too late. I felt tears rising, though I didn't know if they were mine or hers. The woman I might have been, the one he loved and lost. I don't want to lose you again, he said quietly. But if you stay through the full moon, the curse will test us both. It doesn't know mercy. His words echoed through the night, heavy as prophecy. I took a trembling breath. And if I survive? He hesitated, as if afraid to answer. Then I am free, and you may finally remember what it means to love without fear. Something in his tone broke me open. I wanted to run, but my feet refused. I wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that I never chose this, but deep inside, I knew I had. Long before memory, long before reason, the moon rose higher, bathing us in light so bright it felt unreal. The glow from the stones pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. I could feel his presence inside my thoughts, not invading, just existing there, like he always had. I stepped closer, drawn by a gravity older than the stars. If I was her, if I am her reborn, then tell me what she did. Tell me how it ended. His eyes darkened with grief. She loved me too much to let me live cursed. So she tried to break it herself. The bond demanded blood. Hers. The words sliced through the night. I felt my heart twist. She died for you. He nodded once. And I have carried that sin through every lifetime since. The silence that followed was unbearable. The air was thick with everything we couldn't say. I looked up at the moon and saw it differently now. Not a symbol of beauty, but of consequence. He took a slow step toward me. That this time can be different, he said. If you stay. If you trust me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that love could rewrite fate. But the shadows around us stirred, whispering reminders that curses don't forgive easily. I met his eyes again. Then I'll stay, I said softly. Not because I trust the curse, but because I trust what I feel. The light between us grew brighter for a moment, pulsing with life, with hope. And then the wind died. The glow flickered out. The forest went silent. He froze, his gaze fixed on something behind me. No, he whispered. I turned, my pulse hammering. A figure stood at the edge of the stone circle, cloaked in silver light. Her eyes glowed with the same color as mine. Her voice carried through the night, like a memory breaking free. You were never meant to survive, Omega. You were meant to remember. And then she smiled, the same smile I saw in my dreams. The face was mine. The world stopped breathing when I saw her. The woman in the silver light stood exactly as I did. Her face calm, but her eyes filled with something ancient and knowing. It was like staring into a mirror that reflected not who I was, but who I used to be. The Alpha King's voice broke through the silence, low and trembling. Elara. The name wrapped around me like a forgotten melody. My pulse raced, my body shaking from something I didn't understand. The woman smiled, faint but sorrowful. You still remember, she said. After all this time. He stepped forward, his expression torn between longing and fear. You shouldn't be here. She isn't ready. She's already here, Elara said softly, her eyes never leaving mine. You can't keep her from what she is. My voice trembled as I spoke. What am I? Elara's gaze softened. You're me, she said. The part of me that wanted to live instead of love. The part that ran when the curse called for courage. The air around us pulsed like a heartbeat. I felt lightheaded, caught between two worlds, the one I had lived and the one I was starting to remember. The Alpha King reached for me, his hand hovering near mine. You don't have to listen, he said. You're not bound to repeat her fate. Elara shook her head. He says that every lifetime. He promises freedom. But the curse doesn't break through hope. It breaks through truth. Her words hit something deep inside me. The space between them crackled with tension, like the air before lightning. I stepped closer to her. If you're me, I whispered. Why are you here? To finish what I couldn't, she said. You think love will save him. But love was the curse's weapon, not its cure. The Alpha's voice darkened. That's a lie. Alara turned to him. Then why have you lost her 1,000 times? Why does she die before dawn every full moon? His silence was louder than any argument. The truth settled in like cold rain. This was the pattern. The story that kept repeating. Love, death, regret. Over and over. I looked at him, searching his face for something real. Something that wasn't bound by fate. Is that true? I asked quietly. He didn't look away. His eyes were heavy with the kind of pain words couldn't carry. Yes, he said. But this time, it can end differently. I can end it differently. Alara's light flickered. You can't fight destiny with guilt, Alaric. The moon knows your heart. It will not forgive your defiance. He turned on her, his calm cracking. Then let it punish me, not her. The forest seemed to shudder with his voice. The air rippled and the stone circle pulsed with silver flame. Alira's expression softened again, almost tender. You still don't understand, she whispered. You are the curse. The fire dimmed. His face went pale. No, the gods bound her soul to yours, she said gently. Every time you fall in love with her, the bond resets. Every time you try to save her, she dies. The curse doesn't demand her sacrifice. It demands your surrender. The truth landed like thunder in my chest. He staggered back, eyes full of disbelief. That's not possible. I've watched her die. I felt her slip away. I would have taken her place if I could. You never could, Alara said, because you were never meant to live without her. My knees weakened. The ground felt unsteady beneath me. Everything I thought I knew about him, about us, began to fracture. I stepped toward him, my voice barely above a whisper. You knew this might happen. His eyes met mine, desperate. I hoped it wouldn't. I wanted to believe the bond could be mercy this time. Tears burned in my eyes. You didn't tell me. He shook his head slowly. Would you have stayed if I had? The silence that followed answered for me. Alara's form began to fade, her light dissolving into the air. You both have one night, she said. The full moon rises soon. Choose truth or love. You can't have both. Then she was gone. The forest dimmed. The flames on the stones turned to ash. The night was still again, but the weight of what she'd said hung heavy between us. He looked at me, his eyes hollow with sorrow. Don't believe her, he said, voice breaking. The curse doesn't know us. It only knows fear. I shook my head, my chest tight. Maybe she was right. Maybe we've been chasing the wrong kind of freedom. He reached for me. I stepped back. I can't lose you again, he whispered. And I can't die trying to save you. I said the distance between us hurt, more than any curse could. The pull was still there, the bond still alive, but trust was unraveling thread by thread. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain. The moon climbed higher, its glow sharpening through the clouds. I knew what it meant. The full moon was coming. The final night. I turned toward the path back home. If I stay, I said, it won't be because of destiny. It'll be because I choose to. He didn't stop me. He just stood there, his figure dimming as the mist began to rise again. His silence said what he couldn't. He didn't believe he deserved saving as I walked away. I could still feel the weight of his gaze, sad, longing, full of love he didn't know how to keep. The forest was quiet, but inside me, something was breaking open. The memories of Alara's life, the echo of her choices, and the ache of my own were blending into one truth. Love wasn't enough if it was built on forgetting who we were. The sky rumbled, a storm gathering far away. I didn't look back, but as I stepped out of the circle, I heard his voice once more, faint and broken. "If the curse takes me," he said, "remember this love me by letting me go." The words followed me into the dark, each one a thread I couldn't untangle. And for the first time, I didn't know if love was what would save us or what would finally end us. The storm arrived with the moon. The sky had split open, clouds rolling like smoke, the wind tearing through the valley, as if the world itself was fighting to breathe. I stood at the edge of the forest, the same place I had once called beautiful. Now it looked alive with shadows, restless and waiting. The Alpha King Alaric was somewhere beyond those trees. I could feel him. The pull between us had become unbearable, like invisible threads tightening with every heartbeat. The closer the moon rose, the more my body trembled, caught between fear and something deeper that refused to fade. I should have stayed away. I told myself that 100 times. But destiny has a way of whispering louder than reason. I walked into the forest, the sound of branches breaking under my feet, the air humming with power. The stones of the old circle glowed faintly in the distance, calling me back to the place where everything began and where it might end. He was there, waiting. Rain clung to his hair and clothes, his eyes lit by the silver glow of the full moon. For a moment he looked almost human-haunted, fragile, lost. Then the wind shifted, and the truth of what he was returned in the sharpness of his stance, the way the shadows seemed to obey his breath. "You came," he said, his voice raw. "I had to," I answered. "The storm wouldn't let me forget." He gave a faint, bitter smile. "The storm is part of me." I stepped closer, my heart pounding. "Then maybe it's time you stop running from it." Lightning flashed above us, and for an instant, I saw the struggle in his eyes. The curse was awakening. It lived inside him like a living wound, waiting for the full moon to take control. His body was trembling, not from cold but from resistance. "You should go," he said, voice cracking. "If you stay, it will take you too." I shook my head. "You said the curse demands surrender. Then let it take me if it must. I won't leave you to face it alone." His expression twisted with pain. "You don't understand. The curse feeds on love. That's how it survives. Every time I try to save you, it uses you against me." "Then let it try," I said softly. "We'll fight it together." The wind howled around us, the circle of stones glowing brighter. The ground vibrated beneath my feet. The moon was directly above now, its light pouring down like silver fire. He fell to his knees, clutching his chest. The air shimmered, warping around him. I could see the curse taking shape shadows twisting out from his skin, forming patterns that looked like smoke and lightning. "Alaric," I cried, rushing forward. He lifted his head, his eyes no longer fully his own. "Stay back," he gasped. "It's starting." The sky thundered as a shock of energy pulsed through the clearing. I stumbled, falling against one of the stones. The symbols carved into it glowed under my hand, responding to my touch. The same pulse echoed in my chest. And then, like a whisper through the storm, I heard her "Elar." Her voice was soft but clear. "It has to end now. You can't save him by holding on. You must save him by letting go." Tears blurred my vision. "I can't," I said aloud. "He'll die." "He's already dying," her voice said. "He has been since the first night. You're the only one who can set him free." Alaric struggled to his feet, the wind thrashing around him like a living thing. "Don't listen to her," he roared. "It's a lie." But his voice didn't sound like him anymore. The curse was speaking through him now. The forest trembled. The moonlight bent. I took a step toward him, every part of me trembling. Then tell me the truth, I begged. What happens if I stay? He looked at me through the storm, eyes filled with love and despair. You'll die like she did, and I'll live another cursed lifetime without you. The air caught in my throat. And if I go? He closed his eyes. Then I die tonight. And the curse dies with me. The choice hung between us like a blade. The storm's roar faded for a heartbeat, giving way to silence so heavy it hurt to breathe. Love or life? Destiny or mercy? The moonlight flared, forcing both of us to look up. The sky above the circle split with a column of light, striking down between us. The power of it made the air hum. I could feel the curse pulsing through him like a living thing, calling for my name, my heart, my soul. Go, he said again, his voice breaking. Please, let me do this for you. I won't, I said, stepping into the light. Not this time. The power surged. Pain shot through me, bright and cold, but I didn't stop. I reached for him, my hand trembling, the energy crackling between us. Our fingers touched and the entire forest erupted in silver fire. I saw flashes, lifetimes lived and lost. Faces, promises, goodbyes. The moment Alala had died. The first time he'd fallen to his knees and begged the moon for mercy. The curse had replayed that moment through every age, feeding on his grief and my rebirth. And now it wanted one final offering. I felt it pulling at me, the same ancient force that had taken her. But this time, I pushed back. I thought of every lifetime, every ending, every time he had lost me. I thought of love not as surrender, but as strength. The light around us shook, the curse fighting back. I could hear it screaming through the wind. Let go, Ilara's voice urged. No, I whispered. Not until it knows love doesn't belong to it anymore. I looked at Alaric. His face was illuminated by the silver glow, tears streaming down. If one of us must end, I said, let it be the curse. The light exploded outward. The ground cracked. The stones shattered. The forest bent under the force of it. When the brightness faded, the air was still again. Smoke rose from the earth. The circle was gone. I looked around, gasping, searching for him. Alaric, I called Dot, no answer. Only silence, and the faint shimmer of moonlight breaking through the clouds. Dot, then. A single voice drifted through the air, weak, distant, but real. I'm still here. I turned toward the sound, my heart leaping. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, barely upright, his cloak torn, his eyes still glowing faintly. But behind him, the moonlight began to shift. Dot, it wasn't calm. It wasn't silver. It turned red, deep, bleeding crimson. Alaric looked up at it, his face pale. It's not over, he said softly. Something else has awakened. And then the light struck him, pulling him backward into the shadows before I could move. The world fell silent again. I screamed his name, but the forest swallowed it whole. Only the red moon remained, hanging above me like an open wound in the sky. The world was quiet after the storm. The forest that had once sung with whispers now stood still, drenched in silver mist. The air smelled of earth and rain, and beneath it all, of something ancient that had finally awakened. I stood in the ruins of the stone circle, my dress torn, my heart aching in rhythms I didn't understand. The red moon still hung in the sky, casting its glow over the broken ground like spilled light from another world. He was gone. The last thing I remembered was his voice, faint, pleading, and then the crimson light swallowing him whole. Every part of me screamed that I should have followed, but I couldn't move. The earth itself had sealed him away. Now there was only silence. I took a step forward, my hand brushing the charred remains of a fallen stone. It pulsed under my touch, warm, alive, and a spark of light flickered through the cracks. I froze. Then I heard it, a heartbeat slow, faint, but real. Alaric, I whispered. The pulse grew stronger, spreading through the air until it wrapped around me like a memory. The mist began to twist, forming shapes, shadows of him, of me, of lifetimes that had come before. Then a voice echoed through the mist. You should not have stayed. It wasn't him. It was deeper, colder. The voice of the curse itself. I came for him, I said firmly. I'm not leaving until he's free. The mist laughed, a sound like thunder wrapped in silk. Free? There is no freedom for those who love the cursed. Every promise you make becomes my chain. Every heartbeat you share feeds my hunger. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I stood tall. Then you'll starve tonight. The mist darkened, swirling faster. From its heart, a shape began to form. A figure cloaked in black light, its face shifting between his and mine. It was both of us, and neither. The embodiment of everything that had bound our souls for centuries. It spoke again. Voice heavy with 1,000 echoes. You were bound by fate. He begged the moon to save you, and the moon cursed him for it. You are not his salvation. You are his punishment. For a moment I couldn't breathe. The truth hit like fire in my chest. The curse hadn't come from hate. It had come from love, the kind that defied the laws of gods and men. And yet, something inside me refused to break. If love created this, I said softly, then love can end it. The figure tilted its head. You would destroy yourself to save him. I nodded. I already have, in every life before this one. I just didn't understand why. But now I do. The curse doesn't end with death. It ends with truth. The figure's voice deepened. Then show me your truth. The wind roared through the clearing. The red moon pulsed above us. And suddenly the ground opened beneath my feet, swallowing me into darkness. I fell through air that shimmered like glass, through memories and centuries, through every life I had ever lived, every version of myself who had loved him, lost him and waited for another chance. When I landed, I was standing in a world made of light. Alaric was there. He was kneeling in front of a mirror of crimson glass, his hands pressed against it as if trying to reach through. His reflection wasn't his own. It was the cursed version of him, the one twisted by the moon's hunger. Alaric, I said, my voice trembling. He turned slowly. His face was pale, his eyes burning with pain and recognition. You shouldn't be here. The curse feeds on this place. It will take you too. I came for you, I said. Like I always do. He shook his head. It's too late. The curse won't let me go. Then it will have to let go of both of us, I said, stepping closer. He stared at me for a long moment, torn between hope and despair. You'd give your life for me. No, I whispered. I'd give the curse my forgiveness. He frowned. Forgiveness? I looked past him at the reflection in the crimson mirror. The shadow version of him stared back, wild, angry, broken. But when I met its gaze, I didn't feel fear. I felt sorrow. You were born from his guilt, I said to the reflection. From his grief, his fear, his love twisted into pain. But you don't have to live in us anymore. The mirror pulsed. The shadow bared its teeth, but its eyes, his eyes, began to soften. I stepped forward and placed my hand on the glass. I forgive you, I whispered, for every life you've stolen, for every night we've cried, for every time we believed love was the enemy. The mirror cracked. A single line of light spread across its surface, splitting the reflection in two. Alaric gasped, clutching his chest. What's happening? The air around us began to shimmer. The red faded from the light, replaced by soft gold. The reflection's edges blurred until it dissolved completely, leaving only our faces in the mirror, side by side, unbroken. "It's ending," I said, tears streaming down my face. "The curse is letting go." He stumbled toward me, taking my hands. "And what about us?" I smiled through the tears. "We'll find each other again. But this time, it won't be through pain." The ground beneath us began to glow. Light rose like fireflies, wrapping around our bodies, lifting us gently upward. I could feel the bond between us changing. Not fading, but freeing. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. "If I forget you," he whispered, "find me again." I nodded. "Always." The light grew brighter. The crimson world shattered like glass, and suddenly everything was quiet. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the forest. The red moon was gone. The sky was soft and grey, the first light of dawn breaking through. The circle of stones was silent. The air smelled of rain and renewal. And beside me, carved into the ground where the light had been, was a single white rose. I knelt and touched it gently. Its petals were warm, alive, and in its center, a faint shimmer of gold pulsed like a heartbeat. The curse was gone, but his essence, his soul, lived on. A single tear fell onto the rose, and the light inside it brightened for a moment, as if answering me. Somewhere, in another place, another time, he was waking up, free at last. And I knew that when the world was ready, love would lead us to each other again. Because some promises don't end with goodbye. They begin with forgiveness. The first morning after the curse felt like the world exhaled. The forest was no longer heavy with silence. It breathed again. Soft winds through silver leaves, sunlight streaming like quiet forgiveness through the branches. Every sound carried a kind of peace I had never known before. I stood where it had all begun, in the clearing by the stone circle. What was once a place of fear now felt like a sanctuary. Moss had grown between the cracks, wildflowers pushing through as if the earth itself had decided to heal. And in the center, the white rose still bloomed. Its petals shimmered faintly in the light, gold at the edges, pure at the heart. I had come back every morning since that night, unable to stay away. I would kneel beside it, whisper words no one else could hear. And in the stillness, I could almost feel him listening. Alaric. His name no longer felt like pain. It felt like promise. Each day I stayed a little longer, learning what it meant to live without the curse shadowing every heartbeat. The air no longer trembled with his absence. It hummed with his peace. And yet, in quiet moments, when the dawn touched the horizon, I could still sense him, not as a ghost or echo, but as something woven into the world itself. That morning, the sun rose slow and golden. Mist curled along the ground like breath. I closed my eyes and let the light find my face. For the first time, I didn't feel the weight of destiny pressing against me. I felt it moving through me, gentle and kind. Life had returned to the village beyond the forest. People who once feared the woods now walked its paths again. Children laughed by the river. The bells in the chapel rang at dusk instead of warning of storms. It was as if the entire land had awakened from a dream. It didn't know it was dreaming. And I had changed too. Some nights I still dreamed of him. In those dreams, we never spoke. We didn't need to. We would walk side by side beneath the trees, the moon shining white instead of red. And always, before I woke, he would look at me, not as the Alpha King cursed by fate, but as the man who had finally been set free. I wanted to believe those dreams were just memories of what had been, that deep inside, I knew there was something more. One morning, as I gathered wild herbs by the stream, I found something unusual resting on the bank. A pendant, made of silver and glass, shaped like a crescent moon. I picked it up carefully. It was warm in my hand, pulsing with a faint golden light. It was his dot. I had seen him wear it countless times. A relic from the night he swore his vow to the moon. Somehow it had returned, but not as it was. The red glow it once held was gone. Now it shimmered softly, alive but calm. I pressed it to my heart, and for a fleeting moment, I heard his voice. Not a whisper this time. A steady, quiet warmth inside my thoughts. You kept your promise. Tears filled my eyes, but I smiled through them. So did you. When I looked up, a soft wind rippled through the trees, stirring the petals of the white rose that grew near the clearing. One detached and drifted toward the stream, carried gently by the current. I watched it go, glowing faintly like a small star against the water. It felt like a message, not of sorrow, but of peace. I followed the stream until it led to the edge of the forest. Beyond it, the valley stretched wide, bathed in light. Fields shimmered, birds circled, and in the far distance, the mountains that had once looked cold now glowed with morning gold. For so long, my world had been made of shadow and destiny. Now it was made of choices. That night, I returned to the clearing one last time. The moon was full again, but it was white, pure and gentle. I brought the pendant with me and hung it on one of the ancient stones. Its light caught the moon's glow and reflected it softly across the clearing. This is where we end, I whispered, and where we begin again. I sat beside the white rose, my hands folded in my lap. The forest hummed with life, and for a moment I felt something I hadn't in years. Not just love, but belonging. Because I finally understood. The curse had never been a punishment. It had been a mirror. It had forced us to face what love truly meant. Not possession, not sacrifice, but release. To love him was to let him be free. To let myself be free. A shooting star crossed the sky, quick and bright. I tilted my head back and smiled. The moonlight softened around me, and for a breath, I swore I saw a figure standing at the edge of the trees. Tall, calm, outlined by silver light. He didn't move, and neither did I. We didn't need to. The space between us was no longer made of distance. It was made of understanding. When the figure faded, I felt no ache. Only peace. The night grew still. The pendant gleamed once more, then dimmed into quiet silver. The white rose beside it stood taller, its petals unfurling under the moonlight as if bowing in gratitude. I rose to my feet, brushing the soil from my palms. My life would go on, not as the cursed Omega or the lost lover, but as someone reborn in the soft grace of dawn. I walked away from the circle, down the path that led through the forest toward the world that waited. Each step felt lighter, each breath clearer. Behind me, the first birds began to sing. Greeting the coming morning. At the forest's edge, I turned back once more. The moon lingered above the clearing, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw it pulse with gold, like the echo of a promise kept. I smiled, because I knew that wherever he was watching the same sunrise. And in that light, neither of us was cursed anymore. We were simply free. As the first rays touched my face, the forest shimmered. Dew sparkled like diamonds on every leaf. The white rose glowed faintly in the distance, a single point of brightness in the sea of green. That image stayed with me. The rose, the light, and the quiet morning that remembered our names. Because love, when true, never ends in darkness. It ends in dawn.